This section is full of so much, and I'm going to try to kind of condense it from my usual lecture, or not to give as much. It's difficult. We just covered World War I and the Russian Revolution, the Communist Revolution of Russia, and I talked about how significant World War I was on the world and some of the changes that would happen. In the interwar years from 1918 to 1939, I hope, there's going to be a lot of stuff I'm going to cover here, and I'm going to really have to just cut back on some information. What I'm hoping that you're seeing so far as you're looking at all these different bits of information is that we hear about people like Stalin and Hitler and Mussolini, and we hear about American role in the world and democracy versus dictatorship and blah, blah, blah. And, what I'm hoping is you're kind of seeing that there's a lot of background to things that just kind of like, might shock you or make you pause and realize that you need to take a closer look if you're going to have an opinion about politics. If you're going to create a world view, it helps to really soak in the information that we have about all these events so that you can become more informed about them. And I don't know, I find this section really interesting because it puts so many things into perspective. So here we have a poem by W.B. Yeats, and it says, "Things fall apart." There's a African novel called Things Fall Apart, and there's a rap group. The Roots have an album called Things Fall Apart, and it comes from this poem in 1921. There's a section that says, "Things fall apart, the center cannot hold. Mere anarchy is loosed upon the world. The blood-dimmed tide is loosed, and everywhere the ceremony of innocence is drowned. The best lack all conviction, while the worst are full of passionate intensity." I think this is really, we talk about things fall apart, the center cannot hold, and then the best lack all conviction, while the worst are full of passionate intensity. My God, think about that, these lines of this poet by Yeats, in the way that we can look at all periods of history. And I think it's just kind of a chilling statement. So here, I have a picture of Stalin. I have, I believe this is Picasso, I think. And then this is a Marguerite, the Surrealists, and we're going to kind of talk about all these groups. So, the Versailles Paris Peace Conference settlement, 1919. I just want to say, I think this is it's probably fair to say that this is one of the most disastrous political conferences of all times, or certainly right on my top list. If I was going to be less editorializing and if I was going to try to be more neutral, I would want to say that the Versailles Paris Peace Conference settlement was one of the most impactful in ways that was not to be expected by many people. So it's led by our U.S. President Woodrow Wilson, British Prime Minister David Lloyd George, and the French Premier Georges Clemenceau. I said his name wrong. They all blamed the Germans for the war. Now, we all remembered as we looked at World War I, yeah, Germany was being aggressive, but it's a little, that's a lot to blame everything on Germany. And so, and then they divided, I just realized I got to fix this PowerPoint. They divide up the colonies among the victors, denying promised self-determination to smaller nations. This is one of the most important parts for you to really think about in the Treaty of Versailles. That there is a communist revolution in Russia that created an alternative system to Western democratic systems. And it's the democratic nations that are going to dominate and, to many people believe, oppress them. And so and you look at here in this cartoon, this idea that with Germany being put in a certain way, that this would lead Germany to being susceptible to communism. Um, and you also had the creation of the League of Nations at the time that later would become the U.S. and the UN. But these are just some of the factors I want you to think about that's going on. I'm going to end here. Again, I'm going to have to be kind of brief. I'm going to kind of have to tease you with some information. And then if you have any questions, we can go into more details, if you call me or, post things or whatever. Okay, so I'll stop here on this one and we'll move on to the next section.